When we are ready to begin thinking about lateral work with our young horses, I generally start with the leg yield. Initially, that may not be visible, but it's perceptible. For example, when I put my leg on and try to leg yield to the right, I sometimes have a tiny bit of left flexion, that is counterflexion, and then let the horse leg yield to the right. I give the aid with my leg, of course out of my entire seat. I also sit a little bit into the direction I'd like to go. The moment I notice that my horse is yielding to my leg aid, I take the leg off. That is the solution for the horse. Then I do the same thing to the other side, and only then I will go to the next step. For example, I might ride a leg yield along the long side, or perhaps I might even try a haunches in. So initially, it's the reaction to my leg supported by my weight and my seat. And always reward the very first moment. This way, it particularly becomes the horse's idea. Ultimately, I'd like to just sit into the direction in which I'm riding my half pass, into which I'm doing lateral work. And that is, of course, a long process, potentially over the course of many years. But it only becomes the horse's idea if it feels good. Meaning, if we reward the right thing and it becomes pleasant. And I do believe that my horses enjoy this. So when I sit into the direction and I have them on my seat, on the outside rein, and in front of my inside leg, and half pass across the ring, that's a very pleasant and nice feeling. I consider lateral work an essential component even in the suppling phase. It makes it easier for me to explain to the horses right from the beginning, especially in the canter, through leg yielding or travers, to step more and more under the center of gravity. And that allows me to help my horses from the start to shift more weight to the haunches so that they don't run onto the forehand, but learn self-carriage that keeps them healthy. One of the great challenges in the lateral work is, of course, to remain balanced, because it is easier for the horse to be in balance when going straight. Especially in the zigzag, when we change direction after a certain number of canter strides, it's a challenge to continually stay in balance. The key to a beautiful zigzag is to stay in balance the entire time, so the change isn't rushed and out of balance, which would require me to then slow down. If that happens, it's basically too late, everything becomes too laborious. I try to keep my horse in balance the entire time, even in the zigzag, but it remains a challenge, and the canter zigzag defined by a certain number of strides is a particularly exciting movement, especially in the Grand Prix. Generally, the challenge in the lateral work has to do with the fact that the horses always have a hollow side. There is always a chocolate side and the non-chocolate side. It's important that over the course of the training you feel that less and less. And the horses learn to organize their bodies and balance more and more. The goal is to even this out through effective gymnasticizing work. Of course, there are very different types of horses who display different behaviors in the lateral work. For example, there are horses who tend to rush in the half pass and run away. In that case, we work on having them more on the seat so that they'll wait for us. The crux of the matter is always balance. Or a horse gets a bit sluggish and becomes behind the leg. Then I need to ride the half pass with less of an angle and ride a bit more forward. And then there's, of course, the horse that has trouble with the sideways aspect. Work on the response to my leg so that it gets easier to go sideways. Always reward the horses immediately for a good response. And some horses can also offer different reactions in the frame. For example, they might curl. Going into the half passes increases the difficulty of the situation in comparison to going straight. When my horse drops behind the bit here, I may start working on the correct relative elevation and traverse along the long side. But we could also encounter the opposite issue, a horse that tends to become above the bit in the lateral work. In that case, we may work on asking the horse to drop his neck. We demonstrate exactly how we do this with different horses in the Aubenhausen Academy and discuss this topic in detail. As riders, we're incredibly good at making sure our horses get their PT or osteopath sessions, but it's equally important for us to be perfectly balanced with our seat and sit evenly, and to have good body awareness to support our horses in finding and staying in their natural balance. We want to avoid upsetting their balance with a collapsed rib cage or by using our seat bones unevenly. In the lateral work, the rider should consciously sit into the direction they're going. In the half pass to the right, this means sitting a little bit to the right, but don't lean to the right, that would be too much. Just sit a bit into the direction and at the same time stay tall, sit up and don't collapse in the rib cage. It's quite common for riders to collapse to the left in the left half pass and to the right in the right half pass. But stay tall and centered and turn your shoulders minimally into the direction you're going. But that's all quite subtle. At the same time, even though I want to sit tall, I still want to stay seated quite heavily to stay connected with my back, and my legs should be breathing. In the half pass, I don't want to have to push so much with the outside that I get into a permanent squeeze. I want there to be a reserved left and have a breathing leg that makes it actually quite easy. Ultimately, it's more of a weight aid than a leg aid. The ultimate purpose of dressage is to keep the horses healthy and make them more beautiful. That is the classical approach. And how do we do this? By getting the horses to carry behind and letting go in the front. Half passes, or more generally lateral work, shoulder in, etc., are excellent gymnasticizing exercises and therefore serve to help keep horses healthy.